Good morning! Welcome back to Jack's Coffee Break. We are going to do a focus on entrances today. And I'm not going to lie, this is a big one. Mainly because there's really no wrong way to build a zoo entrance, except to not place down the specific items for a zoo entrance. So we're going to be covering a lot of ground today, but I'm going to try and do this succinctly. We'll see how that works out. So I'm looking at a workshop item right now, and I do want to spotlight several workshop items, but for right now, beyond taking a look at this one, I want to go ahead and start with some of the basics. So exactly what you need in order to make a zoo entrance, and then all of the variations that can come with that. So let's go ahead and move to a different part of this zoo. So right here we have the most basic setup for a zoo entrance that you can possibly have. We have this little guest spawner pad right here, and we have this little ticket booth right here, which I believe is literally called the guest entrance. So your guests will spawn on one of these little spawner pads, and then they'll walk through this little zoo ticket entrance thing. And I remember at some point something about these being directional, but I think that was not intended and has been fixed. So you shouldn't have like a specific way that you need to place these. But for my purposes, I like to face them with the little barrier things going out towards the zoo. Just because that makes a little bit more sense for me. So this is all you really need to have, and it doesn't really matter what else you do with it, just so long as you have these couple of parts. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and look at some of the things that you can do. So the first one is the underground entrance. Alright, so you can have just literally this exact same simple thing, and then you can build dirt over it, and this I've done a full covering, so that way you can see exactly what the area of denial is around these pieces. So much like the paths, these zoo entrance parts, along with some of the other construction parts, are going to have what I've been calling an area of denial. This is basically where if you're going to manipulate the terrain, you cannot place the terrain within a certain bubble. And this is what this one looks like. So if you are going to do a covered over entrance, I would recommend maybe either submerging it or working in some way to make this massive difference in height work for you. Of course, you can also fill in this little gap through here. It's really just going to be the height that you're working with. Next is, I think, the style that everybody really goes for, which is to have a building around your zoo entrance. It looks good, it looks clean, it blends in with most styles of zoo. Really where this is not going to make a lot of sense is if you're like having them dumped directly into a nature park. But for the most part, everybody's going to use some kind of building as sort of a cover-up for their zoo entrance. However, we are no longer limited to that. If you own the European pack for Planet Zoo, these two items right here, this tourist bus, and then this little yacht right here, these are also working zoo entrances that you can also use in your game. They're not part of the base game, you have to buy them. If you want to just use these assets, the pack does also come with these that are not zoo entrances per se. So you can have boats, you can have buses, and they don't have to function, but if you want a functional version of these, that would work great too. So these are great if you want to have a parking lot entrance, because essentially what you can do is you can build up a parking lot, and then you can have one of these buses in there and have the zoo offload, or have the guests offload. In fact, let me show you what that can potentially look like right now. So here's an example of a very, very simple parking lot zoo. As you can tell, I've got this little tour bus right here. If I wanted to, I could completely plaster over this with some of the black plaster pieces, and I'll show off what that looks like in a moment. You will end up with this little gap right here, this sort of pathing denial space, which is interesting. But these do hook right up to your path, and they're very simple to use, and they look good, especially in the context of a parking lot. Of course, if you don't have access to this DLC and you still want to have some kind of parking lot access, one of the things that you can do, I found these on the workshop. I don't have the credits, unfortunately, but they're really cool looking. So there's this little, like, weird looking steampunk car, and then here's this more traditional retro car. So one of the things that you could potentially do, let's go ahead and get out our guest spawner. And it is $150,000 to buy one of these, so it's an investment. You're probably going to want to use the one that the zoo provides you for a while before you upgrade to one of these, but what you can potentially do is plunk a zoo entrance in here, and then take something like a car and sit it on top of the zoo entrance. So it looks like guests are spawning in and coming out of their cars. So it's just a little trick that you can do. It doesn't work like perfectly, but it can be just a little nice touch, especially if you want a lot of realism in your zoo. And part of that would mean building yourself a parking lot. And then after that, we have this very traditional style entrance. One of the things that I don't like about the ticket barriers is that in a more traditional zoo, these right here, these little alcoves, would instead be ticket like buying spaces. So you would walk up, you'd come up to one of these little attendants, you'd buy your tickets, and then you'd feed them into the little ticket feeder and let you into the zoo. Unfortunately, that's not how this game works. It's a little bit of realism lost. I guess everybody buys their tickets online in this universe. I don't know. So here's just a little basic, simple entrance. Let's look at something a little bit more elaborate now. Alrighty, and here is going to be one of my more city-style builds. So this is my Museum of Living Arts, which it turns out I've apparently accidentally named after Mola over in the Fort Worth Zoo. I didn't realize, but I went there as a kid, and apparently it snuck into my subconscious. Anyway, doesn't matter. What we do have is this road. So this is something that you would see more for like a museum entrance. And this is another utilization of the plaster. I don't know why it's not letting me select things, which is interesting. Yeah, that'll let me select. That'll let me select. But this might actually be asphalt, and then this is plaster. That's why. So I've used the plaster pieces to blend in with the asphalt of the road, and then I've got these tour bus entrances that I'm having pull into these little alcoves, and then that will dump the guests over so that way they can come into this entrance. Now, you'll notice that I don't actually have any ticket booths set up. That is purposeful. I don't want guests in this zoo, period, if I can help it, at least not for a long time. The other thing that I've worked on is this little city park over here. So there will be like buildings over here, and then more buildings over there, and then this is going to be like one of those New York parks, you know? And then this, I've gone ahead and I've utilized that sort of overground, like terrain cover-up style that I showed you. So we have our little zoo spawner right here, and then I've gone ahead and decorated this version, so we've got a little bit more hills and rocks and make it just look a little bit better. Carried that into some of the decoration so it looks like this is part of the terrain. And then here's one that I haven't decorated yet. So this is another way that you could potentially do a city style, or more realistic style entrance, I guess you could say. And then lastly down here, I haven't built in any parking garages, but maybe we could have, you know, guest spawners down inside these parking garages instead, and then just have mock cars that appear to be like waiting in line or something. So let's go ahead and go back over to our example map real quick, and I'm going to show you some of the workshop items that you can also look at in case you don't want to build an entire entrance like this. Alright, so now that we're back in our example zoo, there is one last version that I want to show off. So this is the boat entrance. This is also included only within the European DLC. If you have the base game, there's really no equivalent to this. However, I will say that the Oceania specific map has done a really good job of making like a gigantic yacht, and then setting it on the ocean for like a normal spawner guest entrance. So you could do something like that potentially. But these let you have an entrance directly on the water, as I've shown off right here. If you want a tutorial about how to do that, it's actually the first tutorial I ever released for the channel, and you will find it hopefully in the iCard I'm pinning right now. Or it will be in my Planet Zoo tutorial series playlist, and it will be labeled something like how to get water entrances in Planet Zoo or something. With that being said, let's go ahead and look at the workshop, because there are some amazing builders who have done some fantastic things over on the workshop. It saves a whole lot of time, and quite frankly, they have more creativity than I think I ever will, especially for this topic. So you can, if you don't want to go to the workshop, you can go into your blueprints, and most of the themes have something like this. The world's most simple zoo entrance. They're all themed to the base game sort of blueprint ideas. So if you're very much a blueprint builder, these are right here for you. You don't have to stick with whatever the game gives you. I will warn you, though, that the price of a zoo entrance is lumped into the price of these buildings. So that is a little bit prohibitive. If you want to, like, reskin, you may have to physically do it yourself, especially in the early game. So the next one I want to show off is the one that we looked at first. So this one is from Rottenwood. He made it a while ago. I think this is from when the European DLC first came out. And it is absolutely gorgeous. It's in this really, like, classic Bavarian Germanic style. I absolutely love it. All the styles of the moss. He's got this really wonderful classic deer statue. And then over here, he has his little ticket booths. Now, I don't believe that this one comes with the zoo spawners already built in, but what it does have, if we pop in through here, are little guest areas. So you have something like a bathroom, around the front and the back on both sides of the entrance. You have little food stands, or I guess these are actually info stands, little info kiosks. And then over here he's got I say he, I don't actually know. They have a juice stand and then an exhibit for you to put some kind of exhibit animal in. And the nice thing about this is that it's basically reversible. So we've got this little path going right here. So I suspect that you probably could put a spawner in right here. That might be the intentionality behind that. Maybe not on this side. But there are little spaces for you to put zoo spawners in, should you want to. And then of course it is completely reversible, which is something that I absolutely love, because you can use either side and it's going to work out just fine. Let's go to something a little bit more elaborate. So this one over here was made by, I'm going to go with Jure, hopefully, maybe. And I think this is for their zoo, Marembe Zoo. I think, considering that this is labeled info, I don't think it's supposed to be, Planko. So I'm pretty sure this is the name of their zoo. So this one is really pretty. It's very elaborate, as you can tell. So over here is going to be their staff building, which is built right just off the side here. Everything is all tucked together. And then you've got this little walk around over here. You've got this little space back here, which I think is just for the design. I don't think there's actually anything going on in this space, or not too much. There's another little keeper hut. He's got his power center. But guests would probably come in from some kind of parking lot, it looks like, and then they will come into this entrance right here. So you've got a little bathroom. It's just based out in the middle of everywhere, so like if you need a public bathroom, there it is, which is really nice. You've got this little central plaza area that's beautifully covered, and then it leads you directly into some entrances and what looks to be some kind of initial habitat that's not included within this. So it's a really good starter item, and on top of that, I think it's really good for, like, if you're one of those people who likes to rip blueprints apart and use different pieces. This is an incredible one because he's done all of these little banisters and all of this different wood decoration and stuff like that custom. It will take a little bit of effort because not everything is sort of like designed for you to rip it apart. So like these banisters are all grouped together instead of on the wood columns. So it'll take a little bit of effort, but if you're looking for some like really awesome wood designs, I would recommend this. So once again, thank you to Jure. This is absolutely gorgeous. Moving on a little bit, we have another more classic style zoo entrance. So again, this is something that would probably you would enter in through some kind of parking lot. It's got this absolutely beautiful recreation of the Planet Zoo logo. It's got this giant statue behind it with all these different animals on it. And it's got lots and lots of these little ticket booths, which are custom, if you can believe it. Just absolutely amazing. I would not put in the effort. I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't, but they're gorgeous. They're really cool. I believe that this is more based off of like the San Diego Zoo design. San Diego Zoo is extremely popular in Planet Zoo as far as inspiration goes. And so it wouldn't surprise me if this is sort of based off of that. I think it's Lion Rider has also built the like the true lion entrance to the San Diego Zoo if you want to use that recreation. And I'm pretty sure that Leaf has a whole bunch of things as well, and he's usually pretty good about updating his workshop. So I would also recommend them. This version right here is made by Nemi, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I've never used it personally, but it's got the full water effects and everything. It's really cool looking. So, don't mind my error codes. This zoo is not meant to be. Again, it's like the living art one. This zoo is not actually meant to be accessed. Over here, we have this grand entrance by Miss Crit Hit. So she has done something really cool here. Absolutely done an amazing job of making a bear statue in Planet Zoo out of the rock bits, which is an art form all of its own. I don't have that skill, but I've seen some really incredible things. So going along with this, I've seen a T-Rex statue. I've seen several other things. But this is really cool. I've got it hovering above the ground a little bit. I believe it's meant to be more like this. But there is a little bit of terrain variation that's supposed to go in with this. So I think this is one of those that's really easily reversible. You could have 3 different entrances going around this way. This could just potentially be a bear habitat if you wanted it to be. It's one of those pieces on the workshop that has a lot of flexibility, and it makes a statement. So if you want a really like big, brash, in-your-face sort of zoo entrance, this is one that I would definitely recommend, or potentially trying your own hand at building something like this. So again, this one was made by Miss Crit Hit on the workshop, and it looks fantastic. Over here, we have Animalia Zoo. This one is made by, I'm going to go with Peculiar. I think that's what this is supposed to say. And this is going to be a very classic building style, like as in you walk into a building. Makes, it's kind of, these are sort of what I took inspiration from when I started building that, the Living Art big building. I started with this, but these are very intricate. So they have everything in place for like, if you wanted to have some kind of walkway, you could have something up through here. Possibly this would go to like, your staff utilities or something. And then down in here you have these little courtyards, which would be designed for your guests to come in and get some kind of refreshment. And they open up into the back, so your guests would have this little pass-through that they would come through. And then over here you have some restrooms. So this is beautifully decorated, both inside and out, and it's making a lot of use of the glass, which I really, really like. Over here is even more elaborate, so I haven't gone through and really, like, cleaned it up to make it look like it's supposed to, I think, on the workshop. This one over here was made by Cloudberry. Absolutely gorgeous. The parking lot is already built in for you. It's already got the cars, and it looks like these are all using pre-existing Planet Zoo assets. So a lot of Jeeps, a lot of these little like motorized rickshaws, and then it's already got the lines in here for you. So you'd basically just need to fill in like the plaster or something like that. And then you come into this zoo entrance, which already includes habitats. So over here we have Aldabra tortoises, and then over here is more of a classic entrance building. What really impressed me about this particular design is, like the other one, the insides are pre-decorated, and they're like, I think they're already usable. So this one has an elevator, and the elevator is what's acting as the spawner pad, which is really, really cool. We have these staircases, we have places in here for the guests to get refreshments, either before or after they leave the zoo. Really well decorated. This little path through here is intended for you to, when you add in the actual pathing materials, this is designed for you to have a staircase. And I believe everything about this is designed to operate on the grid. We have these beautiful little modern art pieces, benches, more refreshments up above. This is also acting as a kind of reptile exhibit. So it's a multi-story, just absolutely gorgeous, like, combination entrance slash sort of education center. We've got another spawn pad up here and more staircases. Whoop. And then back here we have another plaza which goes into this little water garden through here, which is absolutely amazing. I would love to build something like this someday. So this is another place where, like, you can go really elaborate with your zoo entrances and you can make something absolutely killer. I don't know if they're basing this off of something in real life or if this is out of their imagination. I don't know how they made these curves. This is insanity. I would not even try. So if you don't want to build a zoo entrance, go to the workshop, because they're I'm not gonna lie. I've seen some people post that they will start a zoo, and by that I mean that they will build an entire absolutely gorgeous zoo entrance, and then they will stop playing, and they will like quit the map completely, and they'll start over. And if you are one of those people, I recommend putting your creations up on the workshop for those of us who can't build a zoo entrance to save their lives. Like, who truly cannot be bothered with something this incredible. But yeah, so there are a lot of people with a lot of talent, and I recommend, again, if you don't want to build a zoo entrance, go use what they've built, because, I mean, I would not even. But that being said, I'm gonna try today, because we have a zoo entrance that needs to get built. So I'm gonna load into that map and I'm gonna show you what we're working with. If you saw last week's episode, it should be very familiar. Alrighty, so we are back in this sort of desert zoo that we've been working on. Last episode we talked about rearranging this whole central area and what remodeling a zoo can look like. And so this is sort of, I'm doing it in the middle of that one. And I think I mentioned that in the video. So if you've seen that episode, this shouldn't be a surprise. But what we're going to do today is we're going to take this entrance right here and we're going to move it over here. Now, what this essentially means is that instead of doing something like a parking lot or a realistic entrance, what we're going to do is a building style. So the first thing that we're going to do, and because this is in challenge mode, we cannot afford to delete the actual guest entrance and spawner and all that. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to go ahead and just delete this top bit up here, because I don't need any bits of that. And then we're going to look at these spawners. Now, by base game, it gives us 4 of these, which is a lot. I suspect that they give us so many because of the fact that they expect that we'll probably want to move like 2 of them over like to this direction and then have an opposite version, or have like 4 different entrances. I think that they're doing this mainly for flexibility. Of course, the difficulty is that we are only given 2 of these ticket entrances. So presumably this would probably be like an A-B split. Now we could potentially do something like that, but obviously this zoo just doesn't warrant it. So under those circumstances, what we could end up doing is taking only half of this and then shutting the other half down until the zoo gets large enough that it's worth having a secondary entrance into. Honestly, there's really no reason to have 4 guest spawners. There is an argument about having 2 different ticket booths. I don't think that it's necessarily worth it. So what we're gonna do real quick is we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna go into this group real quick, and we're going to split out the bits that we actually want, and then the other half can be placed over here. Now thankfully, because we're gonna keep this other side over here, we don't have to move anything right now. So instead, I'm just going to go ahead, take this object, I'm going to split it from its own group. And actually, I don't even necessarily want to do that. So I'm going to take these items, and I'm going to move them. Here's probably just fine for now. And then, not that one, this one. There we go. And I'll just move this to somewhere a little bit closer, like right there. And this way we have our little starting group. I want to keep these together so that way as we do the gridding, we can just keep these sort of in their own pathing grid and we don't have to mess with anything. So let's talk about how we want our guests to get where we're going. So we already have this style designed over here. It might be worth it to continue. We also know that we're going to be focusing mostly on desert animals up here, so I want to keep with sort of a deserty theme, but I think a modern desert style is going to work a little bit better. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and work out a base plan real quick, and then I will bring you back in. Okay, so it looks like I've done a whole bunch. I haven't. It's going to be okay. So let's go ahead and actually real quick, because these are gonna drive me up a wall. Let's move the bushes. There we go. So let's discuss what I've done here. This is a very simple building. It's essentially an L-bend style entrance. Closer to like the ones that we see for sort of like the base templates. It's just been expanded a floor. So we've got this little waterfall section in here. We'll have a little bit of water effects, and then we'll have some greenery through here. That's sort of my plan. And then maybe do some ivy and stuff like that, some kind of like sign right here. And then probably we'll need some kind of a covering for this, or some kind of greenery piece that will like drape down. And then up here is where I've got my little spawners. So you'll spawn in right here, there'll be some kind of railing, you'll walk down here, and then you'll just exit out. And that's all there is to it. I do need to go through and finish some of the details, like, you know, squaring off these edges. But that's basically all that's really happening. So on the outside, I've done a little bit of decoration. None of this really needs to serve a purpose. I just didn't want it to be a big old square, so I did some things to like break it up a little bit. So I've added in these curves. So we've got one right here. We've got this little hook area over here that I think would be really pretty to put like a palm tree or something sticking out of. I have these holes. So actually I've just got the one. So one right here, and then I'll need to add one somewhere else. And the idea is that these are going to help with airflow. And then I've got this little tower dome thing that I'll do something with. So this is part of it as well. Occasionally I'll just put down shapes and sort of hope that I figure out what to do with it later. It does tend to run me into problems, but hopefully it'll make something look good, you know? So the last thing is that I haven't done anything with the roof. Especially with a building like this, I tend to put the roofs on last. And even with this little greenery bit, I've left it in its own little section so that way I can pull it away and I can work in here without any kind of frustrations with the camera. So let's go ahead and work on all of the things that we know are going to happen within this building. Alright, so let's go ahead and start with the gardening. First things first, I think I'm going to lay down a bed of mulch. And this will just act as a nice little filler, so that way you're not seeing the terrain underneath. And it'll give us a little bit more freedom with how we choose to decorate this sort of infill. There we are. So let's get this nice and even. We're close enough to even that it's not terrible looking. We are going to cover most of this up anyway. And then I'm going to select everything and just lift all of it up off the ground. Let's get these little plaster bits. Something like that, I think will do just fine. And I never really use these little columns, but they might look good. So let's see what we can do with the colors. We've already got the base white, I think that's fine, but the yellow and green and blue is not working for me. But I like the little green splash if we do something like this. So I think that'll work. And we'll just put these in the corners, I guess. And then I'll make them look good in a second. There we are. And then I bet we can probably even put little lights in here. A little conservation bulb will probably do just fine. And now we can pretend these are like light sources or something. Next, let's deal with our waterfall. This rock color. I actually think the white looks pretty bad. Let's try black. It can work. It'll take a little bit, but I think it can work. And let's make sure that these are actually flipped around the right way, because that might, yeah, that's probably part of the problem. And I don't want them to sit perfectly flush with the ground, again, because we're going to do kind of a water effect. So we could use our barriers and implant an actual piece of, like an actual chunk of water. I'm willing to try it. I don't know how well it'll work, just because I haven't checked my dimensions at all. See, I hate this. It says you can do the thing, but then the moment that you try and like expand, it will not let you do the thing. There we are. Yeah, I thought that might happen. So that's gonna disrupt, that'll disrupt. That one doesn't. And that one does. So, I'd love to say that as per usual, we're just gonna do our little terrain check. In order to do that, we actually need to get rid of some of these paths. So instead, we're gonna do the F around and find out method. We're not gonna be able to do the F around and find out. Okay. Out with the paths we go. It's fine. It's fine. I need to work on them anyway. So I've managed to get it to basically work. As much as I can. So we now have a proper water feature in this. And let me go ahead and move this little piece back right here. I wonder how low I can get this particular barrier. Because sometimes it doesn't care. Sometimes it's just like, you know what? You didn't really even need a barrier there at all. I don't know why. But it doesn't look like we have any apparent flooding, and it's not really obvious from the visitor's point of view, so I think it'll be just fine. This looks good. And then now it should just automatically do the little water effect thing. Yeah. Yeah, it does. Looks good. Okay. And now let's fix our pathing. And now this connects. We're fine. Good, good, good. Okay. Alright, can I not get stuck in the greenery? That'd be great. Okay. So now let's do some decorations. So I think let's do a saltwort here in the back. Sort of a nice little space filler. Maybe a creosote, that would be pretty good. We can have another one sort of in these corners. Just as a way to fill in space. And then let's... Ooh. Yeah, let's do a common turkey. And I don't want these to be exact mirrors of each other, so I'm going to do a little bit of variation. Desert ironwood is going to be way too big for this space. So... do a little bit of deer and grass. I don't want to completely fill it up. I think that looks fine. And then these fairy fans might look good. African daisies look a little better, especially in this lighting. So we'll just do a little bit of those. And I think let's use some Budaleas, because I've never actually gotten to use these. These are completely new to me. Oh, and what else do we want? Well, I love these cabbage trees, but they don't belong in this space. Short one in the back might be kind of cute. Do you need anything like that here? Could do... If you'll quit jumping on me. There we go. Maybe something like that. Coastal pig's face is going to be too dark, but I think a little bit more common saltwort just for some infill, some variation. Yeah. So it looks fairly overgrown, but it's not, you know, it's not quite manicured, but it does represent, you know, desert and grassland, which is what we're working with mostly through the rest of the space. So I think that'll be just fine. And then let's talk about vines. So we do have some common grapevine we could probably use. I wish that these grapevines actually, like, stuck to walls properly. They don't, and it's very frustrating. Turn off the random rotation. That doesn't look terrible, but it does need a little bit more work. So let's clear out our tags. See what we can do for ivy. Oh yeah, plenty. Think that looks alright. And since we have a decent amount of space back here behind the facade, I think we might be able to actually bring in a little bit of stonework, which might be pretty cool. So let's see what we can do for our faux rocks. Let's turn off align to surface. Doesn't look too bad. Is it spectacular? But it looks better than nothing. Like here over on this side, like you can tell it looks really plain, like these plants don't really belong growing out of anything. And I think this sort of just helps. There we are. We don't have to do anything drastic. Just a little bit. There we go. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good as far as things go. And maybe let's trim these edges real quick. And we definitely need some railing. So you have seen me trim edges and rail probably a dozen different times now. I do it in just about all of my builds. So I'm going to go ahead and skip through that bit and I'll come back and I'll show you the result. Okay, so I've done all the adding of the little barriers. I've moved the roof back, so I've just added some trim. These little, like, railing things are super easy to make if you use the New World banner posts. I find that they look really good, especially when you have a diagonal, because the angles don't look horrible. Like, it's not realistic, but considering that we don't have a whole lot of things with a good solid, like, 45-degree bent on them besides, like, what are they called? These things, the wooden shade supports, like, these are the only things that really have that bent. And then, I don't know, you really need a style for them, but I find that these look good in most builds. So then I've added all the little wood trimming, and then I've added these lights to sort of cover up the edges. And then up on these top floors, this used to be a plaster wall. I changed it to glass because I think that it just fits a little bit better. So you come in, it doesn't feel claustrophobic as you walk down, and you get a good view out into what you're sort of going in towards. Plus you get a nice picture of the backdrop, which I like the backdrop on this map. So that, I think, is going to do it for the bottom floor. We really don't need to do anything else. These top floors, we could probably make some, like, wall decorations for them or something. Maybe some, like, holes that you can look out at. So let's talk about this back wall, because it's it's ugly is what it is. Now, we haven't done any roofing yet, and we will get there, don't worry. But the sharp edges, I don't think look good necessarily, but it's going to be hard for us to trim those out. So we can do something like one of the curves, like over here, on one of these back edges, and that might help to reduce that sharpness. So let's see how we like this. I think that's gonna feel a little bit too, like, 4 paws or whatever. And then the little stacking with this wall doesn't look good. So it's entirely possible that this may be one of those things that we need to revisit. I find that the back and the sides of buildings are really difficult, especially when you're working with, for lack of a better word, American-style architecture. As in, like, you're taking influences from around America, because buildings here are really meant to be viewed one way. They're meant to be viewed from the front, and anything from the sides or the back really just gets neglected. They get ugly. There's no interest to them. And I find that it's very easy to accidentally incorporate that into your own building style, especially if that's what you're used to looking at. So I don't know exactly what we're going to do for that. We'll figure out something. But for right now, I think let's go ahead and get this roof on, and then I want to work on this little front area right here. Because we have this nice little bit of greenery that kind of scoops you towards this entrance. And considering that an entrance is also going to be an exit, I find that zoos tend to neglect what their exits look like. So, like, you see an entrance from the front and it's very greeting, and then by the time that you get to the exit, the only thing that you're really ever funneled into is a gift shop. So there's not really a lot to look at, and I think that leaving a good last impression helps to bring people back, you know? It's not just the first impression, it's not just all the good bits in the middle. You have to leave a good last impression. And I think that this building is going to do that really well. Your first impression is getting a view of the zoo, and your last impression should be this beautiful building right here that you can come back into. And I think part of that is going to be how we do our landscaping. Plus, it'll break up the fact that this is just one big giant white plaster building. So let's go ahead and get some roofs on it so we know what we're working with, and then after that, we'll deal with some of the landscaping. So what I would like to do for the roof is there's this kind of green corrugated metal. We don't really have that as an option over here. What we do have are these green tile roofs. They're a little obnoxious, but I think I'm just gonna go with it. It'll do. Not my best work. Looks kind of you know what? I don't like it. I don't like it. Let's try again. You know what we could even do? Let's get rid of all this. And since we're already working with circles, actually, you know what? Let me pull this piece because I know it'll be on the right part of the grid. I almost kind of like the funnel. No, it's cute. Only issue is I don't know what we have that's round that'll go on top. I suppose glass. Glass will work. If we have it unlocked. Which we may not. I know we have thatch. And we can try the thatch. I'm not gonna say I will like the thatch. I mean, I've seen uglier. Hate is a strong word. Bah. It can be flat, that's fine. I think it's fine like that. I think that'll be okay. Okay. Do we want an awning? We're allowed to have them. Do we want them? Sure. We can have an awning. Alright, let's deal with the landscaping. I think that we need to start tall over here, and we need to get shorter. So, let's start with a palm, I think. I think that's a good start. And then, let's talk about ground cover. We could do deer grass, which I have done throughout the rest of the zoo. I just worry that deer grass is not going to... you know what? We can always undo it later. Okay, and then let's pull in some of our crimson turkeys. And I believe that's... oh, no, that's sagebrush. I was going to say saltwort, but it's not. I kind of like it. And then I think if we add some of our soap tree yucca... yeah, I like that. It's got kind of this nice upwards flow that fits the building. So let's do a bit of an explore mode walk around. What do we think? This area right here, this feels very awkward, I think. If we can figure out what to do with this, it'll look better. But as we come around through here, the scoop on this building actually works really well as sort of a breaker. I kind of like it. Definitely looks better approaching this way. But overall, I think the building looks fine. It's a little bit plain, I'm not gonna lie. Compared to some of the other things that we've seen today, it's definitely plain. But it's way better than what we started with, and that was my goal. And I think that this is... I think it's serviceable for now. It's in a good place where if I leave it be and I come back with other ideas later, then I think that I've got enough of a canvas to work with. I could figure out what to do for decoration, lights, add some sort of maybe designs or something like that up and down this wall. When we make it sort of to the back of the zoo over here, we'll need to work on, what we're going to do with this, especially the clipping. But for now, I think it's a good base. And like I said, it's way better than what we started with. So I think I am going to call things there. So if you made it this far, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I hope that these tutorials have been helpful for you. I've been slow to get back into the swing of things. But we're back now. Hopefully we stay back. So at this point, I am going to go finish I'm going to go finish last week's episode because time is weird. For you, I don't know what next week is. I have no clue. It could be more refurbishing of the zoo. It could be that we come back and we work on detailing buildings. I don't know anymore. I have given up on planning. It makes it easier for me to just barge ahead with whatever today's vibe is. So anyway, I hope that y'all are having a great day. Yeah, thank you so much, and I hope to see you next time.